Hey everyone, my name is Jeremy Smith. I'm with the Los Alamos Creative District, and welcome to History on Tap. Looking forward to this one, and I think we've got quite a few people in this meeting that are also looking forward to this discussion. Always followed by Q&A, but I'll let Amy talk about that later. First, I want to talk about what's coming up after this History on Tap. From now on, we'll be doing On Taps live in person, back to the meet and greet Q&A at various locations around Los Alamos, so very excited about that. The next one is Science on Tap, which will be July 9th. It will be on a Friday. These are typically on Monday, but for Science Fest, this year we will have On Tap on Friday, July 9th at 5:30. That will be at the Fuller Lodge Lawn. You can check out the Science Fest website, losalamosciencefest.com, to see the entire schedule. Most things are already on there. Most things are virtual. We will have one live in-person event each day, and that will be running from July 6th through July 11th. So check the schedule for that. Science on Tap, July 9th will be, the topic is fighting the world's most deadly disease, with Los Alamos scientist Harshini Mukunda. So looking forward to that one as well. So if anybody wants to have a seat on Fuller Lodge lawn at the porch and join us for that, no tickets required, no pre-registration, just show up for that event. To kick off Science Fest, I've got the Hill Stompers next Tuesday, July 6th. That will also be at 5:30, Fuller Lodge Lawn. There will be an intermission, which will have three scientists talking about the work that they do. And then it'll be back to some more Hill Stomper music. And that will also have the beer garden provided by Bathtub Row Brewing Co-op. So that'll be a fun one on July 6th. Tomorrow, I've got Tuesday at the Pond. These are requiring tickets, so if you want to listen to some blues music, the Troy Brown Trio is coming up from Santa Fe, and we'll be playing at Ashley Pond Stage from 6 to 8 p.m. tomorrow. And get your tickets. They are free. We are limited to 300 people still until July 1st. And then all the Tuesdays at the Pond for the rest of the summer through August 3rd will be open seating, no tickets required. So you can take a look at the Los Alamos Creative District website to see that entire lineup. So that's every Tuesday at the Pond at 6 o'clock. But right now we've got History on Tap. We've got more people waiting for this interesting discussion, and I'll pass it back to you, Amy. Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, there's a lot of exciting stuff coming up that I hope people are able to join. But yeah, tonight we've got History on Tap. I'm Amy. I'm the museum educator for the Los Alamos Historical Society, and we're talking about the Stables history tonight. We're really hoping that it's going to be a roundtable. So if you've been to History on Taps before or lectures, you might be used to us having all of y'all just muted. You're welcome to have cameras on. We're going to start off that way. We have sort of an introduction to the topic, but once we get into the discussion, you're very welcome. I'll have it so you'll be able to unmute yourself. So if you wanted to share your stories, ask questions directly, you can do that. The meeting is being recorded though, so if you're wanted to share that way, you'll be part of the recording, which will hopefully go up on our YouTube page, or is on our YouTube page if you're watching it in the future. If you don't want to be recorded, there is a chat. Depending on your device, it'll be up at the top or down at the bottom. Excuse me. So you can put your questions in the chat and I can read those out as well once we get to the discussion part of this. But to start off, we've got Georgia Strickfaden and Melissa Arias, who will be talking a little bit about the history of the stables as well as some of the future of the stables. And the two of them also did a short talk this weekend with Jennifer Reglin, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight live, but we've got a little video snip to show you from some of her memories of early days of the stables. But yeah, Georgia, I will go ahead and pass it over to you to get us started.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you to the Creative District for giving us this chance to do History on Tap. It's the stables, North Mesa Stables, are part of our history a big part, just like skiing and some of the other ice skating, some of the other things that have turned into county involvement in park. And I'll discuss how that happened as we go along, because before World War II, there was no town here. So the Los Alamos Ranch School and a number of homesteads were taken over for the Manhattan Project. So if some people had horses during the war, and they kept them either at the MP stables, the Mounted Patrol stable, or there were some other informal stables. The old hay barn where the high school is today had been the hay barn for the upper fields for the ranch school. So some people kept horses there. It became more standardized as after World War II, it became apparent there was going to be a town remaining here. Congress created a new civilian agency called the Atomic Energy Commission to take over all things Manhattan Project. So in 1947, everything that had been Army was Atomic Energy Commission. But right before that, entrepreneurial cowboy named J. Kirkpatrick, who was probably working up here, and he was aware of the old homesteads around, and one of them was really quite nice and had some buildings, and that was the Lujan homestead, Manuel or Martin Lujan homestead. So remember, those places were vacant because everybody was bought out. There was nobody here. And so it was available. The Army owned it. And he got a concession from the Army in 1946, it says, in the old Los Alamos Times newspaper, that kind of like the base newspaper, that he was going to start a riding stable there. And then to fill that in a little bit, there was a young guy here with some competency. He was a scientist with horses who helped J. Kirkpatrick drive 2 different strings of Army surplus horses up from Espanola. So there were horses that were sold, and J. Kirkpatrick bought them. Somebody said he had some financial backing to help him get this started, but Bob Crook said they drove him up Rendija Canyon. Remember, you couldn't, it would be like taking many truckloads of horses into the lab today. You wouldn't be able to do it. So they couldn't truck them up here. So they just drove them up from Espanola, where the auction had been. And that was the start of J. Kirkpatrick's riding stable. And then under the AEC, other people with horses and the Atomic Energy Commission, some of those important people were like Bud Wingfield, who was the director of operations here in Los Alamos for the Atomic Energy Commission. And being a horse owner, he saw to it that we got an ironclad use of this area and a place for the stables. And in fact, they set what was set up by the Atomic Energy Commission of the allotment of lots for people that wanted to have horses would get a license to use this public land for that. And that's the way we do it today. But that changed in 1972 to Los Alamos County, a quit deed from the Atomic Energy Commission to the County of Los Alamos, who pretty much still runs it on an individual license basis for keeping your horses in you build your own corrals, you build your own barns, and then there's rodeo grounds and very nice riding areas. And we have access to a lot of trails on the old homestead roads, by the way. And the old homestead roads are now on the National Register of Historic Trails. Well, a few of them, but those that we rode on always when I was a kid. So I didn't get a horse until about 1960, and the stables were organized pretty much like they are configured like they are today. And the evolution of that was because of the old homestead cabin that was there is at the top of the road. In a little while, you'll hear the clip from Jennifer Regland, who was here in 1952, got into the horse community in 1952. And it was changing very rapidly when she was a kid, but she was eventually a rodeo queen. So they got a rodeo fair and rodeo going. And so it was a bigger deal back in those days. But now we have lots of we have 122 stables. And so there's a lot of people interested in all disciplines of horseback riding. And in the early years, though, the quit deed talks about just horses and roping stock, because that's what people did. It was the rodeo grounds and with some stables. But it's a really neat, unique facility that we have here in Los Alamos. So the way it is run today, and I know that the administrative assistant who works with us at the county is one of the attendees here at the meeting today. And I don't know if she's hearing anything new, but I'm glad that people are here to see this. Catherine Hudspeth, right? So with that, I mentioned when I was a kid, the junior posse was big, and I know I have some contemporaries here too. People that are going to talk a lot, share, I hope, in the share time a lot more. But I just rode trails a lot. I rode and rode and rode. I'd just hop on my big standard bred horse and just take off bareback over towards Puye with a canteen over one shoulder and my lunch packed over the other one. And I just stopped somewhere along the way and have lunch. But I kind of rode the legs off of that old horse, but that I rode a lot alone, but a lot of kids obeyed their parents and rode with somebody. So that was an important part of my growing up, was having horses here. So with that, I'd like us to go ahead and switch over to Jennifer's, what she's sharing. And so I'm very amateurish interviewer, so that's going to be some of that clip. And I finally got her pinned on the screen. She was not her sister died recently, and she's up at a memorial service, which is right today. Her kids planned it for today. And she was really sorry to not be here to talk in person.
Yeah, so we've got, I'll just share my screen, and we've got about a 10-minute clip from the interview that Georgia and Melissa did this weekend with Jennifer Regland.
The person we're interviewing is Jennifer Regland, who, I'm going to move her up here closer, has a unique...
I'm not going to back up.
No. So we welcome Jennifer to tell us about the early years of the stables. Let's start out, Jennifer, with how did you get here?
To Los Alamos.
To Los Alamos. Yeah, tell us what happened.
Goodness. The year I came, my family moved 6 times.
Oh.
And we were in Albuquerque for a short amount of time, and my mother was a nurse anesthetist, and they needed somebody up here. She was working 2 hospitals down there, Presbyterian and Lovelace, trying to support 3 girls. And Randy Lovelace said, "Oh, you can go to Los Alamos. They need somebody." And it was still a closed city. We had badges. We came here. Best thing that ever happened to our family.
Okay. And how did you find the stables? What was the incident?
I think that I have some sense of a horse, because for some reason I just found myself at the stables.
Okay. And
and I was so delighted to find horses that I could go out there and pet and sneak rides on. And they've changed a lot, of course.
What year did your family come? When
We came here in 1952.
And that's about the time you discovered the stables?
Immediately. I just had that horse sense thing in me.
how did you, well, I'm wondering how you got out there because in
I
50
walked.
Wow,
I walked from North Community out there every day and
Oh, wow.
back. And then I finally got a bicycle, which was a wonderful thing. And sometimes when the wind blew, I couldn't even pedal it. It was so bad. But the stables at that time, there were a few that began right after the picnic grounds.
Okay, was
They
the
were
road
right
gravel?
there.
Was the road
Yeah,
gravel?
and
And the ballparks were already there?
yeah, the ballparks have always been there. And because we've always had ball players, but we didn't always have enough horsemen here, to have a stable.
Mm.
And so there were few of them right after the picnic grounds. And I think they probably were a little too close. And then there was about, I'm going to say, where you turn down there, there's a road that goes down into new housing area.
Yeah,
Just before that was a small arena.
okay, just
And
before
I
that,
never
wow.
used that arena, but there were a few people up here, a couple of old cowboys that used that arena. And they came up here, and there were some old cowboys working for the lab.
Uh-huh.
And they wanted to have their little, they had some calves and things in there. And then right over where the cattle guard is, there was another arena.
Mhm.
And what is that log house there?
That's the Lujan cabin.
Okay, the Lujan cabin. It would have been just a little bit. Here's the cabin. What would that be? To the left, there was quite a nice sized arena. And on the side of that was another dirt road. And there were stables right along the canyon. They ran parallel to the cabin. And one of them, there was a couple, there was a big old Palomino stallion and the man had something else. He always let me ride that old stallion. And then on the other side, the hill houses had their gated horses. And that was all that was right there.
Huh, okay.
Okay. And on the other side of the arena, right after the cattle guard, and this is after they moved the ones that were near the picnic grounds,
Okay.
and there weren't that many horsemen. We had, oh golly, I'm going to think there was Bush, Brewer, Hall. There were about 4 people who owned stables on that side of the arena that emptied into the road that's still there now.
Mhm.
And trying to think, I'm not sure that there were any corrals really on the other side of them right now.
Go ahead, I'm trying to get you, I'm gonna pin you so that you're the only one there. All
All
right.
right. And the arena that, as I'm describing, you crossed the cattle guard and there were, several stables there. And that little arena on the other side,
Mhm.
that thing was there, golly, for a long time and nobody really used it.
Oh, really?
Not then.
Okay.
And in the meantime, the stables really did begin to expand down that road.
Mhm.
And of course, not that many. We had a junior sheriff's posse then that must have had 20 kids.
Wow.
It was. We don't have any kids riding horses anymore. I was one of those. Oh, the parents got together and they took us to all the parades and the junior rodeos. We went everywhere.
Mhm.
And one of them was Bud Wingfield. And his job at the lab was, I think, director of operations. How's that? And who knows what that meant. And he was the one that I think was really instrumental in getting that Mesa approved by Congress to stay as it is.
Mhm.
He had the foresight. Not, I would say that he had something to do with that.
And he had horses, right?
Oh yeah,
Even-
of course he had horses.
Yeah.
And he and his wife had come from southern New Mexico. And of course their kids had horses. So he was going to make sure, and at that time, our rodeo grounds, and for us, this was new. Our rodeo grounds was down where the trailers are. You
Mhm.
could cross the cattle guard and then just keep going that way.
Yeah.
And there was that rodeo ground down there because we wanted to have a county fair and we didn't really have a place for the horse things.
Mhm.
And at that time, and this I think was kind of, it didn't really work out. They wanted a county fair and rodeo, but this is not a rodeo community.
Yeah, that's. for
It's
sure.
not. And I think in the beginning, some of the cowboys would come up from Santa Fe and everything, but not enough for this county to be able to have a stock producer to come in. You know, I mean, when you start bringing in, and then to bring in all the cowboys, and it wasn't a cowboy town.
Mm.
So anyway, it kind of folded. But during that period of time, they always had a rodeo queen and a big parade and all these things, you know. Do you remember any of that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you
yes,
do remember.
Yeah.
And that was one of the biggest parades that we had all year. And, you
Yes.
know, the horse show, and a lot of people from town used to go.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it was very active horse community. I don't know how it is now. There's a lot of people with horses, but I don't know if you'd call it a horse community.
Oh, okay.
Do you want me
Well,
to look here or there?
it doesn't matter.
Okay.
The, now you were rodeo queen one
I
time.
was a rodeo queen in 59.
Okay.
And I think that prior to me was Pat Folsom, and the year before was Jane Folsom. And I think the one before that was the man that owned the bakery,
Jean
Hillhouse.
Hillhouse, Barbara
Yeah,
Jean
yeah,
Hillhouse.
yeah. She was one of the first rodeo queens. But and Melva Brewer was one. I think Jean Hillhouse and then Melva Brewer. And she hardly ever rode her dad's horses because I was riding her dad's horses. And that was not her interest. Okay. So anyway, you know, we really had rodeo queens all along, and
Mhm.
we
And
all went
still
to
do.
Albuquerque. We rode in the parade. The junior posse probably had, I'm going to say, what did I say, 15 or 17 members. And the parents hauled us all over. We went to Santa Rosa. That was a junior rodeo.
Mhm. And
Espanola, Santa Fe.
and you square danced on horseback.
Oh, and we square danced on horseback, and we were even on KOB TV. K Circle B in Albuquerque. That's what it
Right.
was. And yes, and the man would call, and we had to be pretty spread out. But you know, Alamand left with your left hand, and the horses had to be trained well enough to get there and, you know, turn together
Yeah.
and everything. And all the horses were pretty good. We were all terrible riders. You know, I say that because I know how to ride a horse now. And we always used to think we were so good. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness gracious. We just got on and spurred and kicked, and and the horses did the best they could, you know, and that's the way it was.
Yeah.
We used to go out to the stables, and we'd be there mid-morning, and we'd sit on those horses' backs all day around somebody's water trough, and then maybe go home and eat dinner and come back.
Yeah.
I mean,
And when it was hot, you wound up having water fights.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, we just it was such a large group of kids, and I'm a stable owner now with a couple of horses, but I don't see kids riding.
Mhm.
And I think that's so too bad.
Yeah.
You know, I guess it's the computers and all the modern things, but I still don't think there's a better thing in the world than a kid and a horse.
Right.
I do.
Okay.
So
Great.
yeah, you know, this might be a great place, Melissa, for you to take off and share a little bit about what you've got going on at the stables now and some stuff maybe cooking for the future.
Okay.
I'll-
Melissa,
Go ahead, Georgia.
I'll let you introduce yourself and your interest there. I didn't add as much about the cabins as I had intended to. So, but yeah, we can. The cabins we're talking about are two historic cabins that are there. One was the Lujan cabin, which is still there, and then the other is the Grant cabin that got moved from the cemetery in 1958 to be used as a stable at Lot 111 out there. So those are, besides the Romero cabin uptown, about the only remnants of our homestead heritage that we have. So the stables are situated where there was a farm, a ranch. And so that is important, that was agricultural land. And I think that that Melissa's going to talk a lot more about that. Melissa Arias.
Okay. Hi. Thank you, Georgia. So I kind of want to jump in on what Jennifer was saying about she during our interview she mentioned a number of times that she was saddened by not seeing young people at the stables, and we actually do have a lot of young people who ride at the stables, but not in the way that she experienced it growing up. She said that they would go out and be on horseback all day long, and that's where they stayed. That's where they spent their day. And much like I remember when I was a kid, you go out to play, you're gone all day, and then you come in, you better be home by dark. But nowadays we have organizations like Pony Club, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. There are lots of organizations that go out to the stables. The Gifted Horse hosts for YMCA, JJAB. I could go on and on with the list because there are many local organizations who utilize the stables, even if they're not individual lot owners or lot licensees. So we do have organizations where many community participants are able to go out and enjoy the recreation and horse use at the stables. So I did ask Jennifer to keep her eyes open for those groups, because I think probably the reason she doesn't see them so much is because it's just a different way of utilizing horses. Pony Club attends many events and they trailer their horses out. They might be using the arena, so they're not necessarily hanging out on the roads, up and down the roads. But so she's going to keep her eyes open, and she also did add that she'd love to help with those organizations and bring her experience and volunteer. So I was excited to hear about that. The Grant Cabin and the Lujan Cabin. So I represent an organization called Lemonade Living, and one of our goals at the stables, our goal as an organization, our first goal is to serve individuals with developmental disabilities. And our goal at the stables is to serve through therapeutic activities involving horses, goats, and also history. So I do want to say thank you, Amy and Liz and Jeremy, for bringing us on tonight to be able to share history. And that's one of the things that we hope to be able to do with the cabins. I'm really thankful that we are able to be in those cabins and hopefully open them to the community and be able to continue the type of interview that Georgia and I had with Jennifer. There are so many others who came before us, and we really want to honor those that came before us at the stables, learn about their history, keep that history alive, have some coffee and sweets from Rose Chocolatier around our round tables that are currently in the Grant Cabin. And through Lemonade, we formed a round table of service providers that serve the developmental disabilities community. But at the stables, I actually bought 2 antique tables that are in the Grant Cabin right now. And at the stables, the goal is to form a round table called Stewards of the Plateau and bring together the organizations that many have already long been working in relation to the stables, but then also to the wider plateau. How do we care for our plateau, the Patito Plateau, and treat it well, and and help each other enjoy our beautiful outdoors and recreational opportunities here. And how do we do it in a good way? How can we be good stewards? And so, and history is one of the ways that we get there, is by learning our history, sharing our history, and then tying all of our service providing organizations together, and hopefully volunteer sharing, that sort of thing. That's another thing that Lemonade specifically that we're trying to do with the sheriff's posse. The Lujan cabin is right next to the sheriff's posse, and I have to say, our start at Rose Chocolatier was largely due to a cowboy breakfast that we were the recipient for that breakfast. We were the nonprofit right before we took over Rose Chocolatier. And so the sheriff's posse, that breakfast, paid our first month's rent at Rose Chocolatier. So, the sheriff's posse is so connected to our stables history. And I had hoped to be able to share some of Donna Hayward or Hayden's stories and memories of her family. They helped build the Posse Lodge. There are just so many people. Our community is rich with memories of people who came here from all over the country and all over the world to do science here at the lab and be a part of the Manhattan Project. And many of them spent their recreation time at the stables. And I think it's important that we as a community document that history, share it, get it into our archives. I'm so thankful that we have such a strong historical society here, and that we've been invited to participate and help collect that history. So I'm going to mute myself now.
Thank you, Melissa.
I probably rambled on a little too long.
Not at all, not at all. And I think this is a great point that we've had some nice intros from Georgia and from Melissa. Everybody should now have permission, if you want to unmute yourselves, you can, to share some of your memories of the stables, to ask questions of Georgia or of Melissa. I'll remind you that it is being recorded. So if you are comfortable with being recorded, then you can unmute yourself. There's also a chat. You can find the button at the bottom of the screen or at the top of the screen. I'll put a message in there right now just so you can see where it is. And if you are more comfortable doing that, you can type your comments or questions into there and I can read them out. So I'll open this up if anybody wants to share anything or ask any questions.
Amy, I might share a little bit. I'm Barry Wingfield.
Ah, right.
And
Good.
so I'd heard about the organization, and I was always interested in the stables because we kind of grew up there to my dad's efforts. And we as kids growing up there, we had a lot to do with building the Sheriff Posse Shack. We kind of kept us off the streets when they were building that. We were the common labor. But it's interesting that I grew up with Jennifer. Of course, Jennifer's a lot older than I am, by about a year, I think. But a little of my history, I was the first baby boy ever born in Los Alamos.
Ah,
So if that's of any interest, I've got one of those weird birth certificates.
what year was that, Barry?
1943, September 16, 43.
In the Army hospital?
I was in the Army hospital, yes.
Yeah.
Then I had quite a stint. I broke my leg. I fell off a roof when I was about, I wasn't quite to first grade, so they put me in an Army hospital for about 6 months trying to figure out how to heal a compound fracture. But it was
Geez.
pretty interesting. But I was I guess there was two girls born before. There was I was the first boy, and I was actually the third born. So that's
That's
my only
it.
claim to fame I've ever had.
Very good. That's neat. Where do you live now?
Live in Alt, Colorado.
Ah,
We farm up here. I don't have horses anymore, but we're still deeply involved in agriculture.
all right.
But I left Los Alamos and went to University of Wyoming, and got all three of my degrees there, and ended up back.
graduated-
Yeah.
You graduated from Los Alamos High School when?
Yes.
Yeah.
1961.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing.
And
Yeah.
my mom taught typing and shorthand and
Yes. Yeah.
business subjects for forever. Taught me how to type when I was real small. It's one of the best things I probably ever learned, and that I didn't forget is how to type. It's helped a lot with this computer era. But other than that, I enjoy listening to the what Jennifer had to say, and Jennifer was a unique individual because she didn't have the parents that we had. She, I know my folks hauled her to rodeos, and so she could compete, and she'd use our horses or she'd borrow horses, and she was in love with her horses, I'll tell you that. And I think she still is.
Yep. You know, she moved back to Los Alamos in the last year or two.
Oh, really? She
Yeah.
was living down the valley, wasn't she, or somewhere?
She was, and then she was up in Durango, Colorado, and then she moved back to Los Alamos from there. She decided this is where she wanted to be. And so she brought her two remaining horses
Really
here,
good.
but when she was teaching in California, she said that she was got into horse breeding and big time showing, and she said it's a lot different in California than
Oh, yeah. Sure
yeah,
is.
you got to put more money into it. And
Yeah,
Jennifer, for those of you who don't know Jennifer, she builds barns and she builds fences herself. She still does.
Yeah,
And
she's pretty good hand.
yep,
Truly. I
yeah.
could probably
Yeah,
use it up here, some of our stuff. She went to.
I left out that
Um,
bit of the, oh, sorry. I left out that bit that Georgia was talking about on the clip from Jennifer talking about breeding horses, that she, you know, got land down in the valley and was ready to breed horses like soon after she moved back from California, and they got like 3 little foals, and then she fell in love with them too much. She could not, like, that was the end of her breeding. Like, nope, these are my horses now. I can't sell them.
That's good. But anyway, I'll sit back and listen and enjoyed the conversation so far. Thank you.
Thank you. We need your contact information because you know, if you,
I'll put, Georgia, how about this? I'll put my email in the chat, and you should also have it from your registration for this. And if you
Right.
wanted to follow up, just so that we're not getting people's contact info in the
Super.
recording.
oh, good. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
And that goes for anybody else. Like, I'll put my my email is educator@losalmoshistory.org, and that's in the chat. So if something occurs to you after the thing and like, oh, I wanted to share that story, you can email it to me and I'll share it with Georgia and Melissa.
That'd be great.
Okay, I'll also sit back and see if anybody else wanted to ask questions or share any stories.
I see the Holmbergs are here, 2 of them.
Hi, Georgia. Yeah, this is Larry Holmberg, and my
Yeah.
brother Randy's on here too.
Yeah.
And had I known that Barry was going to be on, I'd probably have my sister Rihanna, who graduated the same year he did, on the phone.
Oh, wow. Wow.
But we're excited to be here. We've been on a lot of Zoom calls for the last year and a half, like all of everybody on the line. And this is the most exciting one for us, looking forward to. And I have there's Randy now on the line from California.
And where are you, Larry?
I'm in Utah right now. I've been living in San Francisco for the last 27 years.
Whoa. Wow.
Not too many stables there, but I'm really glad to see the theme for this tonight because I think it's a very unique piece of a very unique history that we all share. And like many things that we grew up with, I think as we were growing up in those eras with our own ice skating rink and a ski area and nice swimming facilities and of course the stables, I think we all assumed at those adolescent years that all kids like us around the country had the same facilities. And I think it wasn't until we later moved to other parts of the world, we saw how privileged we were. And the memories of the stables were really key in our family. And I remember, and I'm sure Randy does too, going down with our dad to help take down some Manhattan Project buildings on Trinity Drive and salvage the wood, which then we got some help from then Sheriff Lou Rojas, who was our neighbor, to haul it out. And when we built a barn, which was also interesting, and that the stables was one of the first places in town that you could see kind of the uniqueness of families show up, since we all lived in neighborhoods that were identical, basically. You could see how different people chose to build and decorate their family space. And the memories that go back are really fun. Georgia, resonate with yours and Jennifer's about going out and spending the entire day and just get on your horse and riding down the trail with a sack lunch and going over to Wahi, or just out all day and then back and learning that my kids remember being frightened to death going down the steepness of some of those trails and thinking that this is a really dangerous situation, until one of the first families of the stables, it was Lionel Brewer, told me, he says, the horse doesn't want to fall down off of this trail and on that cliff any more than you don't want him to. So just trust the horse and he'll take care of you. But we met many fabulous lifetime friends. The Brewers up at the end of the road from where we built our barn were for us like the first family of the stables then. And Ray Brewer and Lynn Brewer and I became friends like brothers, spending a lot of time together, getting first jobs together, and helping to help other people in the stable area with their facilities. And then we got very active in the junior sheriff's posse, again thinking that everybody around the country had such an organization to get first experiences with the leadership roles in the sheriff's posse, and have a facility where we learned some things that would stay with you in life. In my case, it was the first place that my mother would teach me how to drive and how to drive in the snow, because there weren't any stoplights or much traffic you had to worry about, and you just had to make it up the hill in the wintertime to go feed the horses, which was often a challenge. But we learned things about the birds and the bees there, from kind of being out with nature and experiencing that, including when a stallion in the corral next to ours decided to go on a date with my mare. And a few months later, we had this, one of the best days of my life was to show up and see this beautiful Appaloosa foal that was just a miracle of nature there. So I had 3 horses instead of 2 that I had the day before. And speaking of the Posse Shack, there were also other things like first kiss and first slow dances with sweaty palms, and listening to the jukebox, which had all of the best songs, the Posse Shack, and then learning the things that we could do together. I think Jennifer or somebody mentioned the square dancing on horseback. That to me was right up there with riding the grand entry for the rodeos. It was one of the most thrilling experiences that a young teenager could have, that taking a horse out and doing those kinds of things at full speed and with the kind of intricacy that we did. So there were many fantastic memories about it. I'm pleased to say that some years later, Sheriff Rojas gave me the real badge,
Oh,
Los Alamos County Sheriff's posse, and I no longer have the star with my name on it, but those memories I wear with pride, and I'm really glad to be friends with many of you on the call here, and look forward to meeting more. And some of the people that aren't on the call, I think, are when they hear about this, they're really going to wish that they had logged in, because this is a pretty cool thing to get to share. So Randy, as the older brother, I know I occasionally monopolize the time, but I don't know if you want to say anything.
Well, thank you, Larry. I remember a lot of days hanging out in the stables, playing with all the other kids, horseback riding. By the time I became a teenager, we had gotten rid of the horses and we'd gone to the swimming pools instead. So I missed out on the stuff that Larry did while he was there, although I was always under his foot. So whenever he was doing whatever he was doing, I was surely underfoot. I'm sure I got in your way on a few of those nights, but
where do you guys remember what the lot number was where you guys built your corral, your barn?
I do not. Do you, Larry?
I do not. It was directly across the road from the lot that the Getamies had, if that helps. And it was about halfway down the same road that the Brewers were on.
Okay.
And the last time my wife and I were in town, I took her out to the stables because I've raved about it ever since we've married, and showed her that the barn is still there. It's a big white barn, and the sign on it that said Holmberg's Hideaway is now gone, but it's still a nice place. I remember when my parents were talking about getting this for us, I said, "Are you sure we can afford this? Because horses sound expensive, and you've got to rent a place for it." And I remember my parents saying it costs $50 a year, and that includes water. And I thought, I could pay for that out of my lawn cutting money. So let's go ahead and do this. That's great.
Wow. Well, it's up to 10 times that now.
Well, if I lived close, I'd be first on the list to get a spot.
Yeah, it's still very desirable and still a really good deal. And we know that, and we know the rents when they go up, because we're 100% cost recovery at that park now. So, and we've got access to the rodeo grounds, and we now have a covered arena. When you were out here, we've got not for the rodeo, but for an indoor riding arena. We have dressage and jumping area beyond the current rodeo grounds.
That's fantastic. I was
That's
not aware of that. I was pleased to see that the new rodeo arena was named after Lionel Brewer. I think that was really a touch of class and respect.
Yes, very good. Yeah. Well, next time you're around, some of us are still here, just kind of mosey around. But the Getamies, let's see, you said your barn was still here, the one that you guys built out of
Yes.
It's still there.
out of the Tech Area 1. So there are 3 roads, and you go over Cattle Guard into the stable area proper now. And so which way did you go? Straight down that road?
No, it wasn't straight down. You would take a right-hand turn head to the south.
Okay.
And I think it was the third of 3 roads at that time.
Yes, and that's the way it still is. Yeah.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
do believe that the Riggs owned the one next to us.
Oh, okay. The Riggs, and they had they moved an old cabin.
Yes, it
Right.
looked like an old cabin. Uh-huh.
Yes, it is an old cabin. It was moved from the cemetery in 1958.
Was that the
Right.
Grant cabin they were talking about
Yeah,
earlier?
yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it is. So now Melissa owns that, and she's got plans for it.
Oh, nice. Well, then we're right next to you, or we
Was
were.
it? Was the main door was on like a big garage door sort of
Yes,
out to the road? Okay, okay,
and it's immediately to the west of the Riggs location.
okay. Okay. All
So
right.
so that would be Chelsea's barn right now, I believe, Georgia.
To the
Um,
west. I think it's Melissa Moss. I mean,
well, so Chelsea's in between. Michelle Moss is on the other side of Chelsea. It's Diane Medford's old barn.
yes, but that, they said it was big and with like a garage door facing the road. I think that's the next barn over, Michelle Moss's.
Okay, she does have that garage type door, and so y'all built that.
Yes, yeah, we
Built it
built
from
that,
scratch.
ourselves. And with that wood, I think that barn's gonna be there forever.
Yeah, it's from the tech area, TA1. It's from Manhattan Project.
It
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Yes, I thought my barn was the only one like that, but no, I'm really glad to hear that. That's really neat.
I
Yeah.
am too. I look forward, if Michelle doesn't already know that, I'll be excited to share that with her.
Yeah. My barn is up at the top of the road. There used to be another lot, but they took that out in order to put the road like it is now, where you turn right after you go in the cattle garden, go on down. So mine is the one right next to the road there, and it's built out of TA1 material as well, but I don't know who built it, who was the owner then. So,
So
That's
Georgia,
interesting.
someone's asked about, can you tell anything about the namesakes behind the arenas?
yes, let's start with the Brewers. With Brewer Arena, Lionel Brewer has shown up in a lot of these memoirs, and they were great. He had two sons, Ray and Lynn, and Ray is still in the area. Lynn is too, I think, somewhere in New Mexico, but Ray is down in the valley now, still has horses, the last I heard. And then Red Jackson,
Oh, yeah.
Jackson Arena. Yeah, do you remember Red? Was he here when you guys were here? Red Jackson, black man, and he just really nice. And
Yep.
he made a kind of a clubhouse down there by the arena, next at the end of the road. So he helped everybody. He'd get his tractor out, and so they named Jackson Arena. Let's see, what are some of the other arena names or names?
We were down about halfway down on that first road. We had two lots. We were
Oh.
next to Stafford's. I don't know if you know Ron Stafford.
No. Yeah, that,
But
Yeah,
then
when
we
I
were about halfway, but that's before Red had his before he built down there at the end.
okay.
And he was for lack of terms, he was one of my dad's old whiskey drinking buddies.
Yes, yes.
Always stopped by with Red's just for a nip.
Okay. I had a black horse that had been wild, and he was my riding horse for a number of years, and I was out catching him because he was always getting out, and he let me catch him, no problem. And I was kind of loving on the horse, and Red pulled up and said, "I wish I was that old black horse."
That'd be Red.
Yeah.
His wife could cook barbecue too. They
Did
I
he?
don't know if you ever had a meal that she cooked. She was a dynamite cook.
Oh,
She'd bring
Neat.
barbecue out to the sheriff posse people once in a while, and the junior posse, but she was well of a cook.
that's neat. That's neat. Yeah. What are some other names that people are wondering about, the namesakes? Did we cover them?
Oh, the two Folsom girls, Jennifer covered them. Patsy and Jane Folsom. They were raised by their dad, Hiram Folsom. He was worked. I'm not sure where, but he would just come out in his old truck and just sat there all day while the girls played. They had a couple horses and a jackass. And,
Neato, yeah. That's really great. And the really neat thing still about the stables is that, it didn't matter how much you made. If you wanted to keep livestock, what your salary or anything was, you could have a horse. You could, because it's real hands-on. There's no boarding out there. You do it. You build your own fences in your barn and you feed it all the time. You do all the bedding. So that's one of the real uniquenesses of our area, the stable area, is some people come and think they're going to board their horse here. Well, no, here you buy a corral, you buy the improvements and you take care of your horses. Nobody else is going to do it.
There was Bill Francis was out there. He was with Zia Company for a long time.
The PAFs, yeah. I'd forgotten, yeah.
Walt Humphrey was out there. They had a bunch of Shetland ponies.
Yes.
So remember them. Then another guy that Jennifer used to ride horses for us. We just knew him as Smitty. He had a stud horse out there that I think Jennifer rode, and he had a roan horse that she rode quite a bit. But he moved out of Los Angeles, moved up to Ridgeway, Colorado.
Moved to Ridgeway. Okay.
What about photographs? Does anybody have photographs that they can share to the Historical Society or for the archives?
We've got a whole bunch of them, maybe 30 or so.
That'd be great. But be sure and annotate them so that we know what they are.
And Amy, would people send them to your email, or how is that done? If somebody has photographs and they want to send them in?
The easiest thing for those of you that are here now is just to go ahead and email me, and my email's in the chat, and it's educator@losalamoshistory.org. And if you're here, you've gotten emails from me with the link. But generally, when people donate photos or documents or objects, the person to talk to is our registrar, her job is to register the things that come into the archives. So that's Stephanie Yeamans, and her email is registrar@losalamoshistory.org. But I'm more than happy to be the point of contact for that. So feel free to shoot emails to me and I can get you connected. And I appreciate whichever one of the Holmbergs sent me an email just before we got started. I sent you an email back. It would be fantastic to see some of those photos.
You can always, if you lose that contact information, you can always go to the losalamoshistory.org website and look on the archives. There's a place there where you can share your stories. You can email the people at the archives. You can send pictures. So, if you ever lose our contact information, just go online and I think poke around in there and you should be able to find that.
Yep. And if anybody's sitting there thinking like, oh, I've got some photos, but I like holding on to them. We do also accept generally copies of photos. So if you wanted to keep them in your, family scrapbooks for a while, if you had access to scanning them or access to bringing them by and we could scan them, we can have copies too. Because it's great to be able, especially now that we've got all these names that we're sharing and these stories today, being able to put some faces to those names is always exciting.
And also if you have documents too that go back, like your old stable agreement or something like that, they're sort of fun to see if you, and historically for current people that manage the stables in the Parks and Rec, the stables are under the Parks, Rec and Open Spaces now. So It is a full 100% cost recovery in our license fees. So it's just gotten better through the years. I think it's really, really good and just really good. Something that Jennifer mentioned, I'm not sure in the interview, but she said, moving back to Los Alamos, she said, boy, the county takes care of everything and and we've got access to all this great riding arenas and rodeo arenas and good footing and access to trails. So I was glad she said that because that's really true. We've got it really good here. And it is an asset to the community as like the zoo, where it's a park and people can come walk around and abide by the rules, don't go into corrals and don't feed the horses. So it's a really good amenity to Los Alamos and important to a lot of us here.
Hey, Georgia, someone says, I heard Lot 9 used to be a bunkhouse next to the Lujan cabin. Is that true?
Next to the Lujan cabin?
That's what it says, Lot 9.
No, that was built. I remember when that was built. I think the Milfords built that, 2 stories. I think that was the Milford cabin. Do you guys remember Bob Milford? Any of you? Winifred Milford was a horse person. Okay, but they built that. I can, the only old cabins out there are that predate World War II.
And
Are the 2 cabins, the Grant cabin and the Lujan cabin.
And Lisa's asking about if anyone's mentioned Troop 22 Mounted Patrol, and I assume that's Lisa meaning the person who helped Troop 22. So I don't know, Lisa, if you want to talk about that.
Well, just it's part of the history that we haven't talked about yet. So if anybody wanted to talk about Troop 22 from Ranch School pre-Manhattan, or how Troop 22 is getting back on horses again.
I only mentioned the Boy Scouts. I don't know that I mentioned anything specific about Troop 22, and I'm guessing that that's Lisa. So Lisa, if you have the ability to jump on and talk, please do. And Georgia, you definitely had a hand.
Yes, can you hear me?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good, Lisa. Good.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, for some reason I missed Jennifer's whole thing. I'm hoping I know it's being recorded, but Zoom was most unhappy with me for the first probably 15 minutes of this. So I don't know quite what I missed, but I did want to make sure that Troop 22 got mentioned. So Boy Scouts of America, Troop 22 was one of the first troops chartered west of the Mississippi, and the first and one of only, I think, 4 ever mounted patrols back in the ranch school days. And Georgia, what was it, about 4 years ago when Josh came to you?
Yes, probably within the last 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had a scout who came to talk to Georgia because of her her history with everything out here, and he wanted to do a mounted flag ceremony for the 100th anniversary of, I think the ranch school was the first year, and then the scouts were the next year. It might have been the other way around.
No,
But
Scouts-
Georgia put them in touch. Scouts were first.
no,
Okay.
the
So
Scouts
Georgia
were-
put them. So, okay, but we had 2 years where we did a mounted patrol, but keeping in mind that it's much more difficult to access horses, and these are not boys who could come out twice a day and feed and muck and ride every day and disappear for hours on end on the mesa on a horse. And the social situation, the social fabric is much different now than it was then. So we had some very kind stable owners, Melissa Blair and Carol Branas, myself, that volunteer, and Nancy Ambrosiano too in White Rock, volunteered our horses as long as the horses were in some semblance of a supervised program. So that started out with me. And we now have 2 groups. We have a group that meets in White Rock of more advanced boys. And we have actually 2 groups that I'm working with now. But these boys, they work pretty darn hard, and they have done really 3 mounted ceremonies, because they did the one for Furley Lodge, the one for Troop 22, and on no notice, on a very snowy and sad day, we put together a mounted color guard, honor guard for the young man who started his service. He was the scout who was tragically killed in the snow cave collapse last winter. So I'm really proud of these boys. They're working hard in a difficult situation, because like I said, they don't have their own horses. So they don't get to ride as much. They don't progress as rapidly as they would like to, but they're getting it done, and they're taking an interest in the history and in the horses. And I think it's fabulous.
It's amazing. So I was at Fuller Lodge for one of those color guard rides, and there were people brought to tears seeing Troop 22 on horses again. So it was it's amazing work that y'all are doing.
Well, and they're trying to decide whether they are, as a troop, going to get themselves a lot and a barn and really go into it. But I think that, like I said, with the social fabric nowadays, that's a much harder thing to do than it was in the past. So we're hoping to have some kids in the rodeo parade. They may be leading horses. It depends on how much work we can get done between now and then. But I really do hope that that the resurgence of the Mounted Patrol Troop 22 is takes off and keep going.
I want to add, Lisa, I had one of your Mounted Patrol at camp today.
Did you have William? Was that William?
No, it was Silas. I had Silas.
Oh, you had Silas. Okay,
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. And I didn't even mention before that, as far as the future and what one of the things we want to do out of the cabins is, and one of the things we did today is ranch camp. And that's Silas was helping out with that. And so I was asking a lot of questions about what y'all do so that the other campers could learn a little bit more about what y'all do. So, and
he's one of the new ones. He's one of the younger ones. This is his first year in Mounted Patrol. So, and he's doing great.
Well, he's a great kid. We participate in other activities with him as well. So, and that camp also is with the Gifted Horse. So, thank you for jumping in there, Lisa. Do you have anything that you want to say about Pony Club? The years, well, just kind of, can you give us a little bit of history on Pony Club out here? Okay.
So the United States Pony Club was founded in, I think, 1954, and it grew out of a group of people in England. It had been in Britain for a lot longer. And it was originally by fox hunters who wanted their kids to learn how to take care of their horses and to have good horsemanship, not just be able to ride. They wanted them to know how to, take care of a horse. So it's very similar to 4-H, but more for English kids, English riding kids. And nowadays, 4-H does English and Pony Club does Western. So they're very, very similar. And when I first moved here, I grew up in a Pony Club system, and there wasn't a Pony Club here. I wanted my kids involved in something, and 4-H here did no livestock at the time. And that's, I know that's something we're also trying to get changed. If you want to show a steer or a horse or anything, you have to go join Sandoval or Rio Arriba County instead of Los Alamos. Los Alamos does the homemaking and the gardening, but not any of the livestock. So we're trying to get that changed too. But point being, there wasn't any place to go. There were a couple other English style riders up here. So we started hauling our kids down to the Pony Club in Santa Fe, and that got old. We had more kids that wanted to go than we had trailer space. And unlike the old days, we couldn't take all day to trail ride down there and then trail ride back. So we started our own up here. Nancy Ambrosiano, who's a public information officer at the lab, and myself and Nora Aubert, we're the first movers and shakers for the Pony Club up here. It's been maybe 22 years, I think, now for Pony Club in Los Alamos itself. But the organization has been around a long time. And I'm sorry, that was the horse cough, the horse coughing there in the background. You can tell I'm at the barn. But Pony Club, we've had kids have gone to our national championship, comes around every 3 years. And we've had a number of kids that have gone and done very well. And they go, "You're from where? Did you need a passport?" So like, no, we are not from Mexico. We are from New Mexico. It's still one of the United States. And we've represented the state very well out there. So we have a couple kids from Santa Fe going this year as a championship year. So it's been pretty active. We have, I think, 14 or 15 members now, and 50% of them are adults. Pony Club now allows adults. So we're trying to keep things rolling up here, and this is truly a special place. And you guys were mentioning the indoor arena. It took 21 years to get that built. The county changed its capital improvement programs about every 4 or 5 years. We would be bubbling up to the top. They would change the system and we'd get kicked back down to the bottom. So 21 years, we finally got it built. And it has been a blessing for so many. We're able to ride all year round now and stay out of the summer heat as well. So it's great.
Back to kid things. In the high school yearbook is called La Loma, for those of you who aren't from here. And in 1964, for the first time, they put horses in it as an activity. And I'm sorry, I should have made a slide of this so that you could see it, but this is just some of the kids getting ready to go riding, and here's some of us out riding actually. And so that was in the yearbook in 1964.
Well, and they had a rodeo club, and then we've also had an equestrian club at both the middle school and the high school. But they had rodeo club all through the 70s, because Patrick Trujillo remembers kids doing that. And I think Peter Sandoval remembered something about rodeo club too when he was in high school.
Okay, yeah, that was in between the time I was here before and when I came back. So when I graduated from high school, I sold out. I sold my horse to a teacher, Mr. The earth science teacher. Can't remember his name right offhand, and his daughter. And he was my old horse was Old Banner. He was the only horse I ever owned, and so that was really neat to have him. And I just rode the legs off of that horse. So, but then I was gone and wasn't into horses. And talking with Jennifer off the record too, when we interviewed her the other day, she did the same thing. She didn't do horses when she went to college. She went to Adams State, graduated, and then when she got out on her own, she got back into horses. And there's some other people that are more contemporary, a little younger than me, that you would, some of you who are in the Zoom call may know, Amy Rogers and Lonnie Moore. And they had a little informal club, and they were really into their horses and riding. And it was kind of I get the impression, sort of an exclusive riding, little riding club they had. But they both still have horses. Amy came back. She worked. She was on a farm up in Nebraska, farming with her husband, and then she's back here with her horses. So she's been riding all along. So I had to get back into it. Lonnie Moore gave me a horse, and and a place to keep it. So that was a deal I couldn't refuse. So that got me back into horses as an adult. And that was back in the 70s. And you guys, now I'm one of the old timers out there. It's
No, you're the one who walks all over town to and from, gets great exercise. I think you're younger than some of us others at the stables, Georgia. You're quite an active person. So
Yeah, well, horses keep you that way too. So.
I want to add a little something about the uniqueness of our horse community here in Los Alamos, because I don't necessarily want to say I think we're the only place like this, but I think it's really interesting that our horse community was born out of people coming from all over the country and, and sometimes different parts of the world for the Manhattan Project. And of course, there were homesteaders here before that time. So it was agriculture. But then the stables community itself started as a mix of many different people with different backgrounds who came here, because it was a relatively new community in that sense, and in beyond homesteading and the people before homesteading. So anyway, so you have this mix of all these different people from different places, different backgrounds, different horse experience if they came here with horse experience, and then some where it was new, getting their horse experience here for the first time, such as Jennifer, who said it was the best thing for her. But in many ways, it is still that way. We have people who the lab is always trying to, they want employee retention. They want good scientific minds who want to come here and stay here and live here. And so we get new people out at the stables, but I'm curious about what experience people brought with them when they came here. Like for me, when I was, my grandfather raised cutting horses. So for me in the 60s and 70s, my exposure to horses was cutting horses, and then spending my summers on my aunt and uncle's dairy farm. And then also part of the 70s, I spent in Kentucky and spending my weekends at Churchill Downs, and it was thoroughbreds then. So it started out as quarter horses and then thoroughbreds. And then in the 80s, I lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and it was polo during that time. I went to polo matches and with my high school friends. And then after that, I had my own horses and brought them with me to Los Alamos 19 years ago. So I'm relatively new here. So that's kind of a curiosity that I have because of the interesting conversations we now have at the stables related to the use of the stables. Well, you can only use them this way and with this kind of horse and this type of riding. But we have all different types of interests that have been brought here for use at the stables and for our beautiful recreation. So I don't think we should be locked into one way. And I think it's interesting to hear the stories of who came here, what riding style they came with, what size and types of horses, who built what barns, who built I loved hearing in a recent meeting, hearing Nancy Boudry talking about how when they put the round pens up, the history of the round pens, that sort of thing. So I would hope moving forward that we celebrate all of those different horse experiences, because they're different.
Thanks to Barry's dad and his parents, the Wingfields. So that was really, I'm really glad you came. How'd you find out about this Zoom call, Barry?
Probably on, I'm not sure, maybe, I don't know. I found out about it somewhere, and then I thought, well, that sounds interesting. That I knew something about the stables, and I thought, well, I'd see what that's going on. So.
Oh yeah, I am.
I'm sure glad you came.
And
That's
same
been a
with the
pleasure, for
Holberts
sure.
and others who are sharing here over in the chat. But this has really been fun for me, and I think we're supposed to close out now to sign
We
off.
can, there's a couple of comments I want to read out from chat, and I'll give people, while I'm reading those out, some time to think about if there's anything that you haven't had a chance to share or ask that you'd like to. But yeah, there's some comments about like, is there currently a sheriff's posse or a junior posse? And there's not a junior posse anymore. And the sheriff's posse has sort of changed into less horseback riding, but still involved. And I know, Melissa, maybe you want to say something about connections between the sheriff's posse and the stables. Go for it. Then I'll read some more comments.
So I have to say that we have a really close relationship with the sheriff's posse. I'm a member of the sheriff's posse, and Lemonade Living is actively putting out an effort to bring in more volunteers for posse activities, especially the breakfasts. We have the cowboy dinner and dance coming up during rodeo weekend, August 14th, I believe. We definitely would like more volunteers. And I have to say, just as part of what we as an organization want to be able to do out of the Lujan cabin, I in listening to different stories from Jennifer and Georgia and you know, looking at the wall of history at the Posse Shack, I've been curious about whether we could get a junior posse going again. So I'm interested in that. And if anyone on here is interested as well, such as people like Georgia and Lisa, and I don't know if Melissa Blair is on here or not, or Carol Branas, but like the Mounted Patrol, we might be able to get a junior posse going again. So I don't know, but I think it would be neat.
Awesome. Yeah.
It's a
Go
really,
ahead, Georgia.
really good question from Nancy Bartlett. What is the Los Alamos Historical Society going to do with this history? How can, wait a minute.
Sorry, I just
Okay.
responded and made it move up.
Historic Preservation Board. We have a Historic Preservation Advisory Board in Los Alamos, help promote the history of the stables. I think those two historic cabins we have out there are really important assets. But now the pieces that were built out of the TA1, I think is fascinating.
So I'll speak a little bit to that, Nancy. So I was really excited that Melissa was successful in her purchase of the Lujan cabin. And one reason is because I know Melissa's a partner, and Melissa and I have had conversations about collaborations that we can do related to history, possibly doing programs together, or, you know, using the cabin for programs, helping them do some exhibits out at the stables. So we have a lot of ideas floating around about how we might work together with Melissa and the stables to promote that history a little bit. But right now it's just ideas and thoughts, and I'm just so excited. So I'm just so pleased, and Melissa's been a great partner. I think we are very lucky that she's there. And Georgia also, I know Georgia's been great at keeping up the history and keeping on top of it. So I think we have a great team here. Melissa's putting together a great team also of her roundtable people. So I think that together we're going to do a great job at keeping that history alive, I think. So.
And then we, then we can check with the Historic Preservation Board when it becomes apparent that there's something we need to do, like get something on a listing. The Lujan cabin is on the state register, but it's not listed locally. And the Grant cabin needs some recognition because it is still standing. It's not in situ. The Lujan cabin is in situ.
And talking about partnerships. Oh, Melissa, you go ahead. I was going to ask you to do something too, because you'd say go for it.
That's okay. Go ahead, Amy.
No, I was just going to say, if you could both email me afterwards and then repeat what you said about the cowboy breakfast and dance, because I think that there's some people interested. So if you could say that again, and if you email it to me, I can email it to everybody afterwards. But just if you could repeat it again in case somebody was grabbing a pen.
Okay, well, so the cowboy dinner and dance is August 14th. I think I've got the date right. I'm almost positive. I don't remember the exact time. The information will be going out in all the rodeo publications coming up at the end of the week, I believe is when those go out. And cowboy breakfast, if we can round up enough volunteers to be able to run a solo breakfast, I need to know by August if we've got enough volunteers to run a solo breakfast. And if we do, then we're going to go ahead and get back to breakfast in either, well, that would be August. I mean, not August, September. So the cowboy dinner and dance we're going to do, that's August, but we want to get back to breakfast hopefully in September.
And if
So.
anybody on the call is interested in volunteering and helping you with that, how do they let you know?
You can either email the general email at the Sheriff's Posse website, or you can email me directly at lemonadelivingla. I'm sorry. I'm going to mix up my emails. Okay. lemonadelivingla@gmail.com. lemonadelivingla@gmail.com. So if you're interested in volunteering for any Sheriff's Posse activities, whether it's the cowboy dinner and dance, cowboy breakfast, or if you want to just come as a guest, feel free to email me, please, because we definitely want to build up our volunteer team again and keep
Awesome.
the posse going strong.
Awesome. There were a couple of comments, and I don't want to miss over that. Boudry in the chat, who is maybe Nancy Boudry, saying that Bob Milford and I were on the fair board and we're able to get a wilderness area now on Kawachi Mesa, and that worked with the junior posse in the 80s, made the square dance skirts, and expected families to be involved, and trailered to rodeos throughout the state. We square danced at the Balloon Fiesta and the State Fair Rodeo.
Nancy, if you have pictures, please get pictures in.
Okay.
I love hearing. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have pictures someplace. I know we have some videos. I'm not sure what shape they're in. Yeah, we did a lot of stuff with the junior posse. They have good kids, lots of kids. It was awesome.
It really sounds like that from everything that everybody's been sharing, just like such a unique, positive experience. There's a question in the chat that I don't know the answer to, maybe somebody does. If the county has a brochure on the horse trails specifically.
No, all of Los Alamos County trails are supposed to be shared by equestrians, hikers, and mountain bikers.
Got it. So like the favorite horse trails that you know, if you've got a horse, you kind of have your insider track.
The favorite horse trails are those that go right off of North Mesa into Bio Canyon and points all beyond there. And for you guys who haven't lived here, we had 2 forest fires and just devastated a lot of those areas that we rode in the northern part of the county. Up Pine Springs cabin burned up. The Waihi Canyon drainage was hit really bad. But the historic Pajarito Trail is still is there again. And then the pipeline road over to the Waihi pipeline, the Waihi pipeline road is still rideable, but you can't hardly recognize any landmarks. And now the Waihi Ridge Trail, remember we would take those aspen rides up Waihi Ridge and have a big cookout up there and ride back. So that's still there, still an important trail. It's mostly, there are a number of horsemen trail riders that use it, but it's used a lot for long distance runs for races. We have the Hamus Mountain Trail race, the run, Hamus Mountain Run, you know, that's 50 miles and 100 miles, some of those ultra marathoner sorts. And so they use that almost every year for that. But the trails to the north, and we still have to go by the Sportsman's Club, and you still have to have pop, pop, pop of guns going off, as just like always.
Well, I do want to be mindful of people's time because it's getting to be about 7, but before I close, I want to see if there's anything else that anybody wanted to share in chat or on video.
I'd like to say a couple more things.
Please.
Number one, I want to thank Georgia. I call Georgia a history fairy because she's always she hops around town and leaves little bits of history for people. She'll put a piece of paper on your. She'll come put a piece of paper on my pile of things at a meeting, or she'll leave something that she thinks you should read related to what you're working on, at your stable lot tucked into the gate. And I don't know, I'm assuming she does it for other people. She's been doing this with me for years. She leaves little things, or we'll be talking and she'll already have something that she intends to give me, a newspaper clipping or something, and she'll put it in my hand. Georgia has been a great inspiration for me in wanting to learn about the history of our area. And I love Los Alamos. I love my friends here, and I'm thankful to have Georgia as a friend. And she's very dear to me, and I'm very thankful that she's taught me what she has taught me. She's the one who planted the seeds for the interest in the cabin. My family has a long history with cabins, and so the interest for cabins was already there. But Georgia is the one who opened my eyes to the Grant cabin and to the Lujan cabin. So I'm very thankful for her. I'm very thankful, Amy, to you and Liz. I talked about our conversations, our ideas, the excitement, all of that. It is very exciting, and it's also very exciting to see new faces that I've never seen before who were here so long ago and have stories to tell and came here to tell them. So I'm really thankful to all of you who are here, and I look forward to us hopefully being able to have more conversations like this. I want to do whatever I can to honor your history and to be able to share it and to be able to contribute more to our community. So thank you. And so if y'all have any pictures, stories, memories, even if you write them down, email them, however you get them in, whether it's on a Zoom, just know that there are people who are interested, people who want to hear your stories that you have to tell and see your photos from your childhood or your family or your stable barn or, all those things. So definitely share them because people want to hear your stories.
Thank you, Melissa. The cabins I got interested in by looking. My corral is where I see the Lujan cabin all the time, and I got more and more interested in it and did a history project on it. And I learned a lot, and then I got connected with some other historians who actually know how to do something with what they have. And so they moved it on forward from there. But also it just became very obvious that the old Grant cabin was also of that era, a bygone era. So that was kind of neat. Oh, really quick, looking at Barry there. Do you recall somebody moving a Forest Service cabin in to use as a barn? Does that ring a bell to any of you guys? Larry, any? Does that,
I've got a vague recollection. It seemed like somebody did, and I can't remember. But it was in that era.
yeah, yeah. And it was kind of put back down by the canyon, kind of, on a lot that had a canyon behind it. That, yeah, that was kind of neat. That met its demise. You know, whoever had that lot decided they weren't gonna do anything with it, and it
Yeah.
became firewood or something, I don't know. So, okay, well,
George,
thank you.
our
very-
stable-
very much.
Our stable is a cabin, and I don't know where that was. That was the old, we got it from Banda's. I don't
Oh,
know where that came from, but it's a cabin, or it's
huh,
a building of some kind.
yeah. Okay, because the Bantas also had the lot at 111, the one we call the Grant cabin, which was the Grant cabin that got moved in 58. Next time I see you out there, I'd like to take a closer look at it.
Okay,
And yeah, see if we can figure that out. Because Hayden,
Donna,
Donna, yeah, Donna Hayden is fourth generation. Her aunt, yeah, I don't know, the Bantas were her grandparents, and then Connie Banta is her aunt. And so, and anyway, her daughter is also into horses and got her start up there on North Mesa and active in Pony Club. So Lisa may know more about their background, but she was going to be on part of this panel too, but darn, she couldn't do it. Yeah, we got.
Her schedule got changed.
Yeah.
She is very excited about, she wants to share her information. And also, y'all please know that Georgia and I, we did an interview on, was it Friday, with a spouse of a descendant from the Lujan cabin. And I've got these nifty little cameras now that, we do try and film the interviews. So if somebody has stories that they would like to have archived, last week we met in front of Rose Chocolatier and sat down with pictures and had the cameras rolling and did our interview, and then there are people who can edit those things. So definitely contact us if you have stories that you want to share.
Thanks a lot, you guys, for coming. Good to have everybody.
Yeah, and I think that's a great note to end on. Like, we knew that we weren't going to get into the full history because there's so much history here. So, having opportunities to keep this conversation going after we stop this event tonight, I think is a great note to end on. And we've got the emails in the chat if you want to follow up with any of us. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Georgia. Thank you, Jennifer, also for sitting down and talking with you both. I really appreciate that. Thanks to the Creative District for hosting History on Tap, as always. And a huge thanks to all of you that were here. And this was it's just a great conversation. And it was because all of you were here and sharing and listening. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Yeah, bye.
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
Friends.